when you are living as a shamanic practitioner, you have to live in between the two worlds. You can't just live in one world. You can't be just in the spiritual world, and you can't be just in the material world. You have to be in both at the same time. And it's not like walking and chewing gum, but it's a way of being in consciousness that what you see is only one part of reality.
Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, where you can find a large selection of Om and yoga clothing, spiritual jewelry, and unique fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now here's your host, Ashton Szabo.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Savannah Podcast. We've got another great show in store for today. We're going to talk all about the gift of shamanism. But before we dive in, got two things to talk about. One, I want to encourage you all to go over to SavannahSpirit.com/contest and enter into our weekly contest. It's completely free to enter. You can win a $100 gift card. There are prizes each and every single week, which means at the start of every week, you can go back and enter in again. So I really encourage you, go over and check it out. It's a really amazing deal. SavannahSpirit.com/contest. And you'll be entered in to win the weekly prize. Now, as well, our guest today, the audio was a little choppy to start. He was in a snowstorm in New York. I'm in a rainstorm here in Northern California. So things were a little choppy, but please stay with it. A few minutes in, things do definitely smooth out and they're not so choppy with the audio. So I apologize for that. Nature was having its way with us a bit, but then things did get calmer as it goes. So hang with us. It's definitely worth it in the end. Our guest today is Itzhak Beery. He's an internationally recognized shamanic teacher, healer, speaker, community activist, and author. He has taught all over the world and is a faculty member at places like the Kripalu Center, New York Open Center, and the Omega Institute. He is the founder of ShamanicPortal.org and co-founder of the New York Shamanic Circle. His work has been featured in the New York Times, films, and TV. And his books include The Gift of Shamanism, Visionary Power, Ayahuasca Dreams, and Journey to the Other Realms. His other books, Shamanic Transformations, True Stories of the Moment of Awakening. And he has a new book coming out in May of this year called Shamanic Healing, Traditional Medicine for the Modern World. Excited to have him on the show today. Itszhak, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're definitely excited to have you. Now, you grew up in a kibbutz near the Sea of Galilee in Israel. You were an atheist and a self-proclaimed skeptic. How did you get involved in shamanic work?
You know, we don't really plan where we're going to be. You know, my path was totally not. I would never really imagine that I would be doing this kind of work. It's just that one thing led to the other, and always it happens when you have a crisis. So for me, it was like the midlife crisis. But you know, looking backwards, I think that everything that I did in my life beforehand, growing up in a kibbutz, in nature, being surrounded by mountains and animals and other natural spirit, and do all the work that I've done before, really kind of prepared me to where I am now. I grew up in a kibbutz where it was an atheist community. We are communists. You know, we never really believed in any spiritual or religion, although we were Jewish. But we celebrated the nature. We celebrated holidays using celebration of nature and nature. So I mean, in many ways, this is what we do in shamanic tradition too.
Now, how do you define shaman, and do you feel like anyone can do this type of work?
Well, many of the shamans that I know, indigenous shamans, believe that we are all shamans, that we all have the capacity, or we all have the tools. We are born with these tools to heal other people, speak nicely to them, hug them, put a hand on somebody's when he's sad, to listen, and also to have dreams and visions. So we all have these tools built in our DNA. Not everybody have the call to become a shaman. That's a different story altogether. But we all have the ability to heal. Now, but a shaman, the word shaman came from the Tungus tribe in Siberia, and the Tungus, according to a Tungus shaman that I met here in the United States, said that the real translation of the word is keeper of the fire, which means that a shaman is the person who is keeping the essence of the community, the safety of the community, the song, the teaching, the mythology, the well-being of the community together. So it's not just a person who can bring messages from spirit to the earth, or do healing with herbs and minerals, but it's a person that takes a responsibility for the well-being of a community, or surround yourself within a community. And so it's a person that is in service to others.
Now, you mentioned that not everyone gets the call to do this type of work. I know you talk a lot about dreams in your work. How important are our dreams just in the overall context, not only of shamanic work, but in life itself?
Well, the indigenous societies believe that dreams are a gate to spirit speaking to us. So in many societies, they sit and talk about when their family wake up, they drink the tea, or they eat, and then they talk about the dreams, because they believe that there are messages in them to show them what they need to be working on that day. What is it? Do they go and have game, or if they need to go fishing, or if they need to take care of each other, or in many different ways. So dreams are messages from spirit. That's the way I usually look at that. And I do work with a lot of people on dreams, because you want to know what the theme of the dreams, and sometimes the symbols or the vision that comes to you, it may not be an accurate representation, but it gives you the metaphors for what the persons need to work. And so we have dreams that happen during the night when we sleep, and then we also have the dreams during the awakening time, which is day dreams, or dream time, or when we do the shamanic consciously shamanic journey work. We are entering into the spirit world, and we ask spirit to help us see a vision. So it's very important, the dream work.
Now, with the shamanic work and the type of stuff that like Michael Harner does, and drum journeys and things like that, would you define that as, at nighttime we are dreaming asleep, but in that type of work, is that consciously going into the dream state while still awake?
There are some people who can, as they dream at nighttime, can work with the dreams themselves. It all has to do with the frequencies of the brain. So when you're going into a shamanic state of consciousness, your brainwave is in an alpha state, which is a certain kind of frequencies. But when you go in at night, it goes into the deepest one, goes into the theta, which is the deepest or the slowest brain waves. That's where you go in. It usually happen around 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and that's usually when people remember their dreams. And so it's like a hard drive in many ways. You're trying to find out the images or the messages that are stored in the hard drive, to bring them up into our consciousness or into our, so it can teach us something.
Yeah, well, and you've talked before too about the frequency, and maybe you could expand on this idea a little bit. Is that we're receivers for this energy or these various energies that are there all the time, yet our normal waking frequency is a very specific band of what we can see visually, what we can hear with our ears, all of that. When people are getting into these shamanic states, whether it's through plant medicine or drumming or dancing or chanting, are they widening their band of frequency or changing frequency?
Exactly. So you can do it in many different ways. You don't have to do it with plant medicine. You can have that done through dancing, through chanting, through movement, through concentrations, through meditation. There are many different ways to change the frequencies of your brain. In the shamanic, in the core shamanism that Michael Harner perfected and teaches, and many people practice in the United States, it is done through drumming. And the drumming, the frequencies of the drumming is between 160 to 180 drum per minute, and that lower the brainwaves frequencies down to an alpha state of consciousness. So it is, in many ways, it's very similar to a person who practices meditation that usually after 15, 20 minutes go deep inside where he's or where she or he lose the connection to reality, what we call reality, and they're not sure if they are here or there. But the difference is that in meditation or Buddhist meditation, we are learning to clear our mind and let go of the vision that comes in and observe them and let go. And in the shamanic tradition, you are not letting them go. You are going with the vision, because the idea is that spirit speaking to you, wanting to show you visions that are pertaining to your life or to people that you're working with, or if you are a healer or not. So the idea is that you are flowing with these visions and allow them to come and teach you and not letting them go. So the deeper you go, with the trance, you get deeper into the visioning state.
And what do you say to skeptics that are saying, well, we're making this all up? I remember in Thailand, I do a lot of sound journeys with people, and we'd have these amazing experiences, and I have no real way to describe it. One of the things that one of my shamanic teachers said, Vinod, he's like, when people say, well, are we making this up? He'd say, well, yeah, you're making it all up. This conversation right now, you're making it up. So now that we've got that out of the way, now you can go have your experience, and it's okay. You work with a lot of really high profile people and business executives and Fortune 500 people who I imagine are often very grounded in materiality. How do you open up the possibilities for people that are like, well, this is all just foo-foo in my mind, it's not real? How do you encourage them to open up to the possibilities of this work?
Well, the principle of shamanism is that everything in this universe is only energy. It's a manifestation of material that is shaped by frequencies, by movement of electrons or subatomic particle, and they create form. Like the snow that we have now is plainly water. That water is also can appear as steam, and it also can appear as water, and it also can appear as an ice. So it's the shamans in the forest or in the jungles, they have a saying that the world is as we dream it. Like John Perkins, my friend and teacher, were always talk about that we are the dreams. We are dreaming our own reality. You yourself is not you. Your body is basically a combination of water and calcium and magnesium and millions of bacteria and viruses. So it is not really you. It is formed in a form that is informed by our DNA or others. But it's the you is really your soul part, which is not attached to your body. It's coming in and out, and that's also allow us to do journey work and send our soul to other places, or when we have traumas to disconnect with our soul. So the belief in the shamanic tradition is that the world is an illusion. It's a dream. We create that. If you take a drum is a ring that is made out of wood and an animal skin that is stretched over it. So we create a drum by informing that form that this is a drum, but that drum could be something else too. It could be a water canteen, or it could be a fruit basket. So we put labels on objects in order for us to make order in the world. And you ask about cynic people coming from this state. I have to tell you that I actually prefer to teach people who are very cynical because most people who are cynical, those are the people who ask questions. And when you ask questions and when you're not taking reality for what it is, you have a conversation, you have a investigative mind. And I think that this is very important. That's what I have too. And it took me years to surrender to the idea that everything is an illusion, everything is a dream, that our spirit do exist, that's past life exists, that I can communicate and speak to spirit of ancestors thousands of or 100 years ago and bring information that is pertaining to people's life now. So for me, it was a long process that the mounting evidence of the existence of the spiritual world was undeniable. And I had to start to live with that. And my journey was not easy in that way. When I started to experience that, I went into 8 months of deep depression because I could not bridge between the world that we see and the world that I knew now that existed, that is the unseen world. And I think that what's really important in shamanic practice is to be in that two worlds all at the same time in your in everyday existence. Is to understand that the material world that we see or experience in our five senses is only one way, and then you have another level of reality. And when you are living as a shamanic practitioner, you have to live in between the two worlds. You can't just live in one world. You can't be just in the spiritual world, and you can't be just in the material world. You have to be in both at the same time. And it's not like walking and chewing gum, but it's a way of being in consciousness that what you see is only one part of reality, and there is a bigger reality. Then you have to take in account all of that.
One of the things that one of my shamanic teachers used to say, the kind of symbol of this idea that you're talking about is the person with the eyes half open. So that and you see this even in yoga as well, is that there's some attention to the outside world of the senses, but there's always half inside with the inner world and the inner dimensions as well. And I love the idea that again, anyone can be a shaman because these things are there all the time, but this idea that we are spending that what constitutes a shaman in many ways, as someone who is immersed in both worlds all the time. As you said, they're not, and you can see people that are off in the spirit realm all the time. There's no grounding. They're just like, woo, like the wind blows and they float away. And then you see the opposite too with people that are completely grounded and deny spirit. And the shaman is that person who's in between those worlds, that's willing to dance in both. And I think that's a really important thing, especially given where we are in human history right now and where the planet is and everything else, and the necessity of paying more attention to the more subtle energies and realms of the world.
Yes, and part of the teaching, of the shamanic teaching, is to develop the inner drone, and which is the ability to have at the same time that you are engaged in an activity in the material world, to have another eye that is flying over you, that can see what you're doing and understand where you're coming from, or the motivation for you to act in certain way. So it is being in two realities all at the same time and access it. So when you are in the spiritual world and you need to speak to your spirit helpers or guides, or to help to do a healing or surgery, spiritual surgery, you can access the material, the power of the material world to make change in that spiritual world that can affect what we call the material world. So it is a way of engaging both realities all at the same time and being conscious of that.
Mm-hmm. It's something interesting too about this idea of the material, and it really also being energetic. One of the things that would always really help to validate these ideas, we're talking about skeptics a little bit earlier, when people would go into these various shamanic journeys, whether it was through a drum or a rattle, and most people go in with an idea of like what their spirit ally is going to be. And I would say 99.9% of the time, it is never that thing that people are thinking. And I would have people come out, whether I was leading a journey or working with various other teachers. People would come out and they'd be like, oh, I was a swan. I'm not a swan. That's ridiculous. This stuff doesn't work. This is a bunch of hoo-hoo. And then they would actually go and look up like what swans represent. Now, this wasn't something that was in their conscious mind. It wasn't something that they knew about themselves. But when they actually look at the symbolism behind the energy of that particular animal or animals, they're like, oh my gosh, this describes me to a T. So there's some sort of universal intelligence beyond our conscious mind that's operating all the time that shamans for as long as we can even see recorded history have been diving into, but seems to be kind of lost on our very materialist modern culture. Now, for people, not everyone, we talk about like, okay, shamans out in the jungle and all that. And I think there's a very big rise in popularity of shamanism right now, but not everyone can go off to the jungle or to the mountains to find a shaman and study with them and explore with them. Are there simple things or practices that people can do to become more attuned to these subtle realms that you encourage people to try?
Well, first of all, pay attention to your dreams and write them down and find out what they mean. And the second part is to understand that everything that happened to you happened for a reason. Nothing is happening by coincidence. There are no cosmic mistakes. It all happened for a reason. You go and you break your leg. There is a reason for that. You get sick. There is a reason for it. Find out what the reason is. What is it came to teach you? And then the big teaching of shamanism is to immerse with the natural elements, with water, with air, with fire, with the earth. Understand what they come to teach you. What's their qualities? Like the biggest part of the shamanic teaching come from observing nature. Mm-hmm. Being around a river, looking at the flow of the river, flow of the water. Where did the water come from? Where are they going? Why do we have white water? What's the white water in my life? How there's all these issues that goes by, like all these pieces of wood that flowing in the river. So, or watch the clouds flying. What is the air? What is the fire? What's the essence of all of it? So, the biggest teaching in apprenticeship with indigenous shaman is to develop an intimacy with the four elements and with the direction of the sun, the earth, the moon, and the north. All of those is to reconnect our society or yourself to feel part of the universe, that you are not separate. And we have two dreams in many ways. The dream of the South, or the dream of the indigenous cultures, and the dream of the Western civilization. And the Western civilization celebrate the individuality over community, the separateness. I'm going to take my horse and I'm going to ride into the West, and I'm going to conquer unoccupied land and build my own farm there, right? And do it myself. I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. Where indigenous cultures know that this is totally outrageous. I mean, we do need community. We do need to be dependent on each other and celebrate our togetherness and diversity, and to accept all of that as part of life, not as a part of competition or who's doing better or who. So there's a lot of elements that you can do in your communities too. You can go in nature, you hug a tree, ask what the tree to teach you. There's so many things you can do, small things, not big things.
One of my teachers used to always say, he said, just pay attention. That's it. I mean, you talked about it there a few moments ago of, if you're going outside and you're looking around and you notice, well, I'm seeing lots of crows around me today. And you go and you find out what crows are all about, what the energy behind that material form represents. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's a message. That's something that the universe is trying to teach me. And the more you pay attention to this stuff, you're like, wow, I'm seeing lizards everywhere that I go. What's a lizard all about? Or I saw 20 butterflies today. What's this about transformation in my life? The universe is literally singing to all of us all the time if we just pay attention. And as you said, there's amazing things happen when we're just willing to surrender into that more, to pay attention to it a little bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, when you start to live in synchronicity, understand that everything that happened in your life come for a reason, you start to understand the mystery of life. Mm-hmm. And living in the mystery, in the possibility that we don't know, it is frightening for many people, but it's also give you freedom. And you can feel, people who are, you can see it in the political arena now, that there is a huge fight between fear and hope. The contraction, the people who are afraid of the mystery, they're afraid of loose energy. They want to control everything. And the people who are more willing to be open and accept new changes and new ideas and the unknown in their life. Mm-hmm. And living in the unknown, I'm telling you, it's quite exhilarating. It's frightening because you don't know, mm-hmm. but it's also exhilarating because it gives you possibilities and opportunities.
Well, and the assumption that we know or can control things anyways, in and of itself, is an illusion that we'd be living under, because we're all in the mystery anyways, as much as we might want to fight that fact. You talk a lot about community, and I know that you're the co-founder of a shamanic community in New York. Other than seeking out teachers and other things that are established, how can people, perhaps people that are listening that are interested in this type of work, but simply want to connect with their community? Because again, there are countless different types of traditions that people could work with, specifically in shamanic work, but people could also get together and, as you said, go pay attention. They can go hug a tree. I mean, there's all sorts of things we can do. What do you encourage, or how do you encourage people to just go out and start something like that, to get together and work within their community to start to build those bridges with others that have similar interests, that want to explore this stuff more?
The way we do it is that we offer 4 events every month. So every week there is some kind of get together, and we call it shamanic circles. So we have a shamanic circle that is open to everyone once a month, and we dance, we sing, we do journey work, we speak. And then we have a women's circle, and then we have healing circle, and then we have a workshop by some teachers that either come from the other countries or people from our community, or Native Americans. So we bring this teaching too. And those circles are becoming home to people who are speaking the same language. Like one person was talking about it a couple of days ago, that if he just joined us. He says, I have all these visions. I have all this journey work that I do in my head, and I can't speak to anybody. I can't tell it to my daughters. I can't tell it to my ex-wife. I can't tell it because people would lock me in. So there's no place where you can feel safe sharing that the lion told you to do certain things, or that you saw the lizard and the lizard told you to do certain things, and talk about the symbolism. And so any involvement, I mean, I would say, create your own shamanic circles, drumming circles. Be together and drum, and even not talk, just drum or create music together. Create a community. When you create a community, you create home, you create safety. And we know that when people are in community, their health increase, their mental health is increasing. They are happier people than being alone.
Mm-hmm. When we see with the rise both of modern culture as a whole, but in particular things like social media, where people are connecting more often now, but it's not in the way that is seemingly healthy for us. There's something about in-person connection that, especially if you live in a big city, often missing. One of the things that living abroad for so many years and away from cities that you notice in the difference of a rural area or even out in the jungle or versus a city is that everywhere you go in these rural areas, people stop. They take the time to connect. They make eye contact. If you walk down a city, I mean, if someone catches you smiling at them, they get scared. Like, oh my gosh, someone's smiling at me. What's their intention right now? What's happening? Like, people keep their eyes down all the time. They don't want to connect with other people. And I think that's doing some serious damage to us. I grew up in Los Angeles, where it's like, who has time to talk? You got an hour of traffic to look forward to. So you got to get in your car and get going. Like, it's crazy how disconnected people are in today's day and age, which I think is such an important part of that message you were just saying, of building community together, of people connecting together. It doesn't have to be some formal, I come from this particular lineage of this thing. Just get together and sing or drum or dance. I really appreciate that.
Exactly. And, we also have a bigger event, like once a year, we have a shamanic gathering in Central Park, and we have hundreds of people coming. I think last year we had 400 people coming together, and they sharing food, they sharing dance, they meet each other, they form relationship, they meet different teachers, they decide who speaks to them, so they continue to do the shamanic learning, studying with them. And it's a way of expanding. It's a way of feeling that you have a place in this world, that you're not just a tree, a lone tree in the middle of a hill that you can't talk to anyone. And the description you're talking about people not smiling to each other in the big cities is very, very true. And we need to break that. We need to bring back the it's not it's not those people's fault. Living in such a congested areas and with such a huge stress, people forget that we are social animal, that we need to be around people that love us, support us, listen to us, that we can open our heart to them, that we don't need to be so guarded and protected. And that's what the shamanic work is really providing people here in New York City, of course, and all around the world. And you know what? Because I have all the statistic of my website, the shamanportal.org, I can see where people are coming for the website. And, you know, most of the people who come to receive information about shamanic work come from the San Francisco area, New York City, Chicago, London, Canada. But at the big cities, the people were they're the loneliest the most and the most sophisticated, technologically advanced.
Would you say that the ultimate gift of shamanism then is community, not only human community, but community with nature, community with spirit? Is that ultimately this great gift that shamanism offers?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, but it's a whole package. It's not. It is a community of visionaries, of people who are able to connect from the heart. Because you do have communities of, let's say, people who in a high tech, let's say. It is a community, or a community of lawyers, but do they share from their heart? Are they there for each other? Do they develop personal relationship with each other? So I would say that it's a community that supports each other from the heart, from knowing, realizing each person's full potential.
Well, in yoga too, they talk a lot about the seat of the Atman, the soul and the heart, and we have it in our popular language as well. This idea that like, oh, he or she has a really big heart, or that team has a lot of heart, and what we're usually using in reference to is a person or persons who are willing to put something larger than themselves as their priority instead of their own self needs. And I think that's kind of the idea of community and heart there, where it's like, it's not just about me. It's not just about my own personal ego and needs, but rather I'm willing to open up to something larger, to the community, to someone else's needs. Hey, I have the ability to help someone. I was speaking to a guest actually before this, and he was talking about, I believe it was this book, the Secret Life of Trees or something like that, but talking about how trees in this forest, when you have other trees that are lacking in nutrients, the trees that are larger and have the extra nutrients actually share their nutrients through the mycelia in the ground to these other trees so that they can grow as well, which, I mean, fundamentally is quite different than the culture that we're in, where it's I need to get mine for me so that I can grow up big and strong and take care of myself. This idea is, well, sure, I can grow big, but it's what's the point if I can't also share and help those around me grow? And I think that's central to the idea of the heart.
Yes, it's perfectly said, because the loneliest you are, the more successful you become, it doesn't support who you are as a human being. Human being is a community of family creatures. You can't say, listen, I work with a lot of people who are very successful, and I work also with their children of people who are very successful. And I can see how lonely they are and how frightened they are to lose what they have. And their soul wants to reconnect with the regular people, the common people, or the common human activities. And I can see the struggle that happened, and I'm not saying that money is essentially bad, or status or is essentially bad, but I can see that when you are the higher you go up the ladder and more money you have, you're more separated yourself from other people because you're afraid to lose that, because you're afraid to give, because you're afraid that other people. No, that doesn't happen with trees that share their nutrient. They share it, and you can see it in the jungle. The first time I came to the jungle, the biggest lesson that I got was how cooperative each of the plants are. That there is no one tree that does not share its shade, its nutrition, its with plants and with other animals, with other birds. It's a whole community. So the jungle is a living community that support each other and help each other to maintain their life. And in the same way, also the indigenous cultures understand that if the community is strong, each individual is strong.
Well, we've talked around this topic quite a bit, just even in this conversation today, but perhaps we can distill this down to say, why is this work so important right now?
On many levels. I think that you can see the political atmosphere that we are in now. And you ask yourself how that happened. Where does it come from? And there is a sense that this minority that rules the country now disregard community, disregard sharing, disregard fairness, everything that we talked about. It is all about fear and scarcity and of resources. It's all about getting more money or more power for themselves, disregarding people who are not like them. So I think that people who doing shamanic work, they understand that diversity is power, that vision is power, that sharing your heart and sharing your resources with others is just more empowering others. I think that will change the climate of this world. And I think that it's a clashes of two different dreams, so two different visions of what we as human being needs to be. And you can't lecture people about that. You can't tell them that they are wrong. The only thing you can do is to open their heart. The only way you can do is ask them to experience what it means to hug a tree, what it means to speak to spirit, what it means to sit in a community. Because these people are lacking that experience and they don't know what we are talking about. They really don't. They are a miserable, to me, it's a miserable version of humans. They are lacking. Okay, I can say it in a different way. Those people, their soul, part of their soul was left them. And that's the part of the soul that is all about me, survival, fear. And what we need is to bring those people's soul back. And the way you bring their soul back is by reconnecting to nature, reconnecting to their human heart, the human experience.
Tell us about where people can connect with you, Itszhak. I know you've mentioned the shamanicportal.org. I know you have a personal website as well. Where can people connect with your work, get in touch with the workshops that you do if they're in New York or in those areas? How can people find out about you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's just my name, itzhakbeery.com, itzhakbeery.com. And if they want to be on my newsletter, I send the newsletter once a month with all these different activities, and they can come and join me in teaching, because I teach quite a lot in different places. And they can invite me to teach if they want, or read my books. I think that's also a good way to connect with my experiences. And I mean, really, the books that I wrote is about my experience, and I don't pretend to know everything. All I'm sharing in these books is what I learned in these 21 years of doing this work, and the people that I met and their teachings. And the shamanic experience is huge. It's not. I come from a tradition of the Quechua in Ecuador and Brazil, the Uruhu tribes. But there are so many other traditions of shamanism that people can immerse themselves and learn and study and experience, because, books are wonderful. They open up your imagination and mind. But the shamanic teaching really is about the personal experience. And once you experience something, like when I experienced my first past life, I could not deny it anymore because I experienced it. And not only that I experienced it, I went to Vienna and went to the museums and found all the details. So my skeptic mind verify my experiences, and then it helps you surrender to that.
Itszhak, thank you so much for coming on the show today, for sharing your stories, for sharing your heart with us. Really appreciate your insights, and in particular your message to just open up to community more, open up to spirit more. I think it's very important given everything that's going on in our planet right now. So I'm glad that there are people out there like yourself doing the work that you're doing, sharing in the way that you're sharing. So thank you for that, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
For all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have learned something new today. I hope you're encouraged to go out, get in nature some more. If you're in a giant city and you can't find nature, something actually that I learned listening to Itzhak talking, he was saying that, one of his teachers told him once that, you know what, you're stuck around giant buildings. Guess what? Those buildings have spirits too. So no matter where you are, you can connect to spirit, connect to your community. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you all have a very present and connected moment. Namaste. Hey everybody, it's Ashton here with an announcement. We're starting a weekly contest giveaway over at Savannah Spirit. If you'd like to enter into the contest to win one of our weekly prizes, go to savannahspirit.com/contest. If you enjoyed listening to the podcast today, we'd really appreciate it if you went over to iTunes, left us a review, leave us some comments, and share this podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. Also want to invite you to go check out Savannah East, which is the name of our blog and also the name of a Facebook group where I interact with guests and our audience. We'll post recent episodes up there as well as interesting articles relating to our guests and or the topics on the shows. And again, thank you so much for listening. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaheast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.